Okay, good evening, and welcome now to the regular Board of Selectmen meeting for February 1st, 2023. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance, but if we could all rise and observe not only a moment of silence for Dennis Murphy, who Jean just spoke of, but for former First Selectman Beth Hogan, who passed away recently. Beth most recently served on the Pension Committee and Charter Revision Commission, and prior to that served on the Board of Finance and obviously First Selectman before that. Beth touched the lives of so many people in this community. East Lyme is what it is today because of people like Beth Hogan. So if we could all observe a moment of silence, and I'm sure Selectmen will like to speak later on in the meeting about that. Thank you. And I don't believe, moving into it too, Mary Cotillo is here to discuss the neglected cemetery account grant, and they asked if we could move her to the head. Just it shouldn't take but a couple of minutes, so she can get back to where she was planning on going. Is there any problem with if we move her up? Any objections to that? Okay. Okay, so no other additional consent and agenda items. Delegations. Anyone that would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Jamie.
Jamie Barr Shelburne, 31 McElhaney Drive. I'm here tonight to talk about old business number C, discussion of Park and Recs Commission and Youth Services Commission merger. At the last meeting, the attorney spoke and it seemed like it was going to be a clear-cut, simple, easy procedure, but I had some concerns. Namely around if the merger will diminish the Youth Coalition's capability of getting grant money. As a Youth Coalition member, we are always trying to get grants, and part of that is tied to having a youth services. So I just have concerns about money coming in and whether or not we'll lose some grant status and whether or not the Youth Coalition would remain intact, because we do a lot of work with prevention services, suicide awareness, and we've been doing a lot of other stuff in coalition with the schools. So I just have concerns, and before we make any decisions, I would just like those to be thought of. I know you can't interact, but just to think about that kind of stuff when you're making that decision tonight.
Thank you, Jamie. And we will be discussing that shortly too. So, anyone else wish to address the Board of Selectmen? Okay, we will go now to item 3B, neglected cemetery account grant. Roseanne contacted me about a little over a week ago, and said they'd like to apply for this. There's a grant, so they did some research. They identified what they'd like to have addressed. And Mary, if you'd like to come up and give us your name and address and your affiliation with the historical cemeteries, and bring us up to date.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for hearing me.
Mary, can you pull the microphone down a little bit closer to you?
Good? Will that be all right? Can you hear?
Maybe get a little closer to, yeah, you could, there you go.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Siri, members of the board and residents. My name is Mary Cotillo. My address is 74 Fairhaven Road in Niantic. I'm here tonight as president of the Historic East Lyme Cemetery Association. Soon I will have with me, possibly, our town historian, Liz Cookta, a member of our group, and John O'Neill, who is also a member of the group and is familiar with this grant and is assisting us. The Historic East Lyme Cemetery Association was established in 1989 to discover and document, repair, and maintain our town's oldest cemeteries, which have no perpetual care. There are presently 16 cemeteries which have been identified. Our focus at the present time is Max Mill Cemetery, which is located at approximately 112 Scott Road in East Lyme. It has also been known as the Rogers Cemetery and Whistletown Cemetery in some early documents. The earliest stone known to be in this cemetery is that of Lydia Mack in 1819, which is now illegible. There are over 100 stones and field stones, including the familiar names of our town's earliest residents, such as G, Mac, Rogers, Maynard, Morgan, Huntley, Damon, and Scott, some reported to be of Native American descent. It probably began as a family burying ground and expanded as time went on and the neighborhood grew. A very short time ago, in early January, we became of a grant that was available from the state of Connecticut. It is known as the Neglected Cemeteries Grant Account Program and is available through the town only. We are very sorry that we have had such short notice to alert you to the program. Our reason for applying for this grant is to repair and repoint the cemetery wall. A section of the street side wall, approximately 8 feet long, has begun to collapse and is in immediate need of repair before it becomes a safety risk. The full length of the wall is in need of repointing in order to avoid further degradation. In the short time we've had to gather information for this grant, we contacted several stonemasons, and only one was willing to give us a quote to do the job. The estimated amount to do this work is just under $7,000. The largest amount available to be awarded from the grant is $5,000. This application must be submitted by February 6th, 2023. It requires that the first selectman sign off on it. If we are awarded the funds, then the work will begin as soon as possible. I thank you for your attention and your consideration. If you'd like more information or have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
Any questions for Mary? Nope. Okay, if there are none, is there
Yes.
a resolution?
Yes. Okay. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen may enter into, with, and deliver to the State of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management, Intergovernmental Policy and Planning Division, and any all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate as it relates to the 2023 Neglected Cemetery Account Program, and further resolved that Kevin A. Seary, as first selectman of the town of East Lyme, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including, but not limited to, executing the delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. The undersigned further certifies that Kevin A. Seary now holds the office of First Selectman and that he has held that office since December 7, 2021.
It's December 6th, if we could make that a change.
Okay.
So, anyway. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
A second to as amended.
As amended.
Okay, any further comments? Mary, thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very much.
hard work. Roseanne, thank you for
appreciate it.
helping out with this too. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Thank you, Mary.
you so
And just
much.
make sure
Thank you.
we get the
Thank you.
documents, and we'll be happy to take care of signing them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, or actually moving back now, actually, to old business under possible discussion and possible action, the ethics policy acknowledgement form. There's a couple things here. This has been run through town attorney, and when we started, Ed started talking about looking at it and what needed to be done. I said, Sandy, show me what you had. She brought it in, he goes, it's perfect. That was easy. So thank you, Sandy, for doing that. And it basically on the page 3, the acknowledgement of receipt of ethics code. This is for employer commission and name and date. And then on the other one, that would fill out for contact information. Ann had mentioned, and Santora mentioned to me that the only thing she might like to see is possibly the I prefer to be contacted by, that top part moved to the bottom, which I think we could easily do. So is there anybody else that would any problem with making that change?
No, I just had one other question on it.
Sure.
It says, I don't know what page it is on the last, it says acknowledgement of receipt of ethics code, the employee member name, employee commission member signature. Should that have a witness to that? You know, like a line or witness to,
I think that'd be.
or are they submitting this page?
They're turning in, but I think a witness, because they're with HR when it's done, that might not be a
They-
bad idea. I'm sure that wouldn't be town attorney wouldn't have an objection to that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll add a witness to that. And then with the second one, we'll move the, I prefer, it'll start with, I have received a copy of the East Lyme ethics policy, and then the I prefer to be contacted will go at the bottom. So. Okay, any further comments on that? I know we've talked it. Roseanne, thank you for bringing this to our attention a few meetings ago so that we've reviewed it.
So we'll need a motion.
Motion,
to-
as amended to
yes,
now.
Motion to, we'll move to approve the ethics policy acknowledgement form as amended.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Roseanne. Any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It carried unanimously. Moving,
Should we be getting? yeah.
oh, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
yeah, we did it to help Mary out there. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, we really went out.
Getting
Thank you.
excited.
Let's go.
Ourselves. It's all right.
Let's go back to the approval of minutes.
Right, so we'll move to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 18, 2023 as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dan. Any comments or corrections?
Yes.
Okay.
On page 4 of 5, on the the seventh bullet point, on the third line down, it says, basically they were chosen as the most recent recipient of the, it says Power of Giving group. It should be Power of Together.
Power
is
of
the
Together.
name of the group. So it should change to Power of Together instead of Power of Giving.
I think that was me too that said the wrong, I'm pretty sure I said the wrong thing there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
So just need-
okay. Okay, any other comments or corrections? Okay, the first and second are okay with the amending? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda,
Right.
and I made sure there was nothing over 5,000 there. So, and we've worked on addressing that as we move forward too, so.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the regular meeting of February 1st, 2023 in the amount of $9,868.28.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Now we can really do the EV charging station items. Alex, if you'd like to lead us into, and again, this is for discussion only tonight, so we can think about it for a little bit, because it's been a while since we've had the full presentation with the new figures and so forth like that. And also it allows Mr. Gervais and I a little bit more time to identify a source, because this has to have an upfront funding source, and we just want to be sure we've had that. You know, and here again, the last several days have been dedicated to getting the budget prep, so we want to make sure we give it the time it deserves.
So I have a full size of this concept plan, but they were also, it's also posted with the reading material, and I'll have a smaller size, but I'll put it here, so I'll move it out of the way here.
No, I've got it.
All right. Good evening. For the record, Alex Close, Town of East Lyme engineer. Nice to see you all again. So this is informational. Originally, we had said that there is a possible request for action, but we will actually plan to request action in 2 weeks with a draft motion to allocate funding for this. But I have updates on the rebate application that we had made to Eversource several months ago. This EV charging for, we're talking about the Methodist and Hope Street parking lots, has a copy of this has gone to zoning for review, and it has, I've included with the items that you've had, it also has the 824, CGS 824 approval from planning, which I spoke with them last week, and that was voted in unanimously to be in line with the East Lyme Plan of Conservation and Development as well. So, since we've last spoken on this topic, we have since submitted an application with the help of a consultant, as we discussed, ESC Group. I have here today Thomas and Katie as well. If you have any specific questions, I'll ask to bring them up afterwards to answer specific questions on the consulting side in terms of if you have any very technical questions. If not, I should probably be able to answer any questions that you may have in terms of the project and how it affects the town. As you may recall, we submitted an application to fund electric vehicle chargers at the Hope Street parking lot, the Methodist Street parking lot, as well as the Town Hall and the Flanders Athletic Fields. The Flanders Town Hall and the Town Hall and the Flanders Athletic Fields, we had submitted an application for the level 3, which is a 480 volt 3-phase fast charger, which is one of those chargers that you can do like a full charge in like a half an hour to an hour, obviously depending on your specific make and model and your battery capacity. And for the 2 parking lots, which I'm here to discuss tonight, we submitted for the level 2, which does not require 3-phase power and can charge a vehicle from empty to full, if you will, more in like a 6 to 8 hour time frame, again, depending on the make and model and the battery life of your vehicle. And this would be for the 2 municipal parking lots. We are on the wait list for the level 3, and we're going to continue to be on the wait list. And if Eversource releases another round of rebate funding, we'll look at pursuing that further. However, we have been approved for up to $40,000 per parking lot to install the level 2 chargers. So the purpose of bringing this up tonight is to answer any questions you may have, with the understanding that my plan is to request action to actually allocate funding for these chargers at the next meeting 2 weeks from now. The chargers, we could look at the chargers themselves just to get the money up front. I know everyone's curious. So the initial investment would be under $100,000, but we would get rebate back from Eversource upon construction, all but up to just under $15,000. That $15,000 would have to come from a town account, which we're working to identify what account that's going to come out of, and that's why I'm not ready to actually request action this evening, but that also gives us time to answer any questions that you may have. So I think that works out, and that's helpful as well. So that $15,000, just under, it's $14,975 or something close to that, is 50% of the charging units themselves, and it is also networking and servicing fees and some ancillary site items like line striping and bollards that cannot be covered by the grant. Everything else, as far as make-ready installation is concerned, is covered under that grant, and we are really maximizing that on the 2 parking lots. One of them we're using all $40,000, and we're going to complete some of the remaining ancillary work potentially with Public Works, just some minor concrete work. And then on the other one, we're using in the high 30,000s. The proposal that breaks down these specific numbers, I don't want to get into the weeds with that, but you also all have a copy of this proposal, which actually shows these numbers specifically. And at the next meeting, we can go into the exact numbers, but those are roughly what we're looking at. An initial investment of $100,000, knowing that we're going to get about $85,000 of that back from Eversource, probably about a month after the work is actually, once the chargers are in and inspected by an Eversource representative, we get $85,000 back and that $15,000 remaining. I'll pause for questions here, But I am happy to then go into the actual layout of the chargers, how it affects the parking. But I'll just pause now because I think this was kind of just a recap of what we've discussed the last time I presented. I'll take any questions. Yes.
Just a quick question. You said that the level 3 chargers from the town hall and the Flanders athletic facilities are on the waiting list. Do you know, like, is there an approximate time for that waiting list, or is it just kind of some ambiguous?
So
timeframe?
I'm going to refer this question to the consultants as well, but I'll answer it as my understanding. At first, we thought the money was almost immediately allocated for the level 3, and we thought there was like no chance we were going to get them, but we put in an application anyway.
Okay.
And I understand it, Eversource actually did get a second round of funding, which to everyone's surprise, and so there is a possibility that we'll get that. Do you guys have a?
Yeah,
more
so,
specific- can you just come up?
If you could come up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
update as of yesterday is March 15th. The new program will open. So they have been continuing to take wait list applications. So those will take priority, and then new applications can also be submitted. That's the word that we have right now. So it's still somewhat in the works, but it will be opening on March 15th.
And have you already submitted an application for that? Did you say?
Yes, yeah.
For both sites.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Roseanne.
I don't think you told us before, and I don't think I asked, but if I did, I've forgotten. Do you have any idea how many electric vehicles are owned by people in town?
No, but I can get that number. It was just recently published Connecticut-wide, an inventory of the most predominant make, model, and geographic location of how many people are running EVs. So I think the state of Connecticut has that registration information, and they have created a portal to display that registration information. So that is definitely a number that I can get to you between now and the next meeting.
Well, probably it's in the tax collector's office because we have to pay, and I didn't think to ask for it, so that might be a simple way to just get for our town.
Yep.
And then we had some previous discussion that there would be, that people would pay something to use these. Now, would our own town residents have to pay to use these, as well as out-of-towners?
So that's really up to the board and whoever ultimately decides to set the rate, but there is no limitation on, there's no like waiting period where we have to provide electricity for free. So the discussion that was had internally was that the town would try to provide the electricity as close to at cost as we can possibly get. It's my understanding we'll probably lock in on an annual basis with Eversource what their distribution fee is going to be. Each one of these, or in this case the 2 parking lots, will have their own meter, and we can try to get a rate with Eversource. Using that rate, we can set our own as close to that cost as possible with maybe a small charge for operation and maintenance fees, but not looking to actually make a profit, and be able to provide that electricity as close to our kilowatt hour cost as we can, to just be able to maintain the chargers and maintain the infrastructure.
But we're paying for the electricity.
We will pay for the town would pay for the electricity, and the town can charge whatever rate they want. But just like going to the gas station and shopping around, people are not going to use a feature if you're charging too much, and we're obviously not in the business to be making any kind of substantial profit. That was the discussions that were had internally, but I welcome, of course, any discussion from the board on how they foresee whether or not rates should be charged or anything like that. That's really between the board and the first selectman. But there's no limitation from the rebate that we have to do, a certain rate, or that we can't charge or anything like that. It's basically free money, if you will.
Thank you.
Okay, Ann?
Are you set?
Yep. Yes.
Alex, dovetailing Ms. Hardy's question, does ESC provide any analysis on pricing? I mean, are we going to freelance here? I mean, what in terms of setting a price? So, I mean, we would have to be informed as to current market prices, et cetera, et cetera. So, is there some, basic information that you provide to your customer, ESC being one, the town?
That's a good question.
So we've been working with quite a few different municipalities, and all seem to have the same sort of want for their structure, is not necessarily to make a bunch of money, but just to, give the service and cover costs. So as far as set fees for software and stuff like that, and basic knowledge of what will be needed for any kind of O&M in general over the years, we can definitely recommend a fee to charge, and there are many different options to do that. So the software is very open to allow you to either choose groups that may get it for free, be that town employees, town citizens, and then charge others, different rates for different groups. It's very open, so we can definitely recommend a fee structure.
That's good, because we'll be starting from scratch.
Sure.
So we need some information.
Yeah,
for
yep.
sure.
We can do that based on your rate, and with the new meters, as he mentioned, there'll be a separate rider for those, so they get a reduced rate, being that they're allocated only for EV. So it makes it a little bit easier to set it that way.
Okay. And while I have you there,
Sure.
thanks. I'll switch to another related set of questions, but with respect to the make and model of these EVs that we are, I assume, because that's a piece I did not see in the documents that we have been given so far. So I personally would, and maybe the board members share this with me, I'd like to see that in the contract make model, because if we're talking about, warranties and spending money for software, licenses, et cetera, so is that also going to be that chunk of information available in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've settled basically between two different models. I think we're leaning maybe towards Juice Bar, which is actually a Connecticut company.
It's the model that you see
Right,
in
in
your
the,
packet.
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And the software is called Amp Up. It's a really widely used software throughout different charger models, so it's very popular with drivers. It's easily recognizable, but it can be changed over time if there's any reason in the future you want to change software.
And in terms of your other consulting responsibilities, do you provide information about security, insurance, related issues?
So I can certainly help with that a bit, but certainly not my expertise as far as insurance,
That
and
would
security.
fall
It's
to
kind
Tom.
of, I
I
feel
mean,
like it's very site specific, so
Right,
it could be a little
right.
bit tough.
But I mean, in terms of your experience with other municipalities,
Yep.
what have they been doing with?
Not a whole lot, to be very honest.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so new, I think, that everybody's trying to, figure it out a bit, and you hope that people won't, purposefully damage these things, but
It's a risk, yeah.
it is a risk, a little bit, of course. We definitely think about, the things that we can with installation, snow plowing, bollards to prevent anybody running into it, and, the basic things like that. But as far as just sort of thinking about theft or damage, it's a little bit tough. But, we can certainly help if, you have an insurance person or something like
Right.
that.
Actually, Kevin's not, you just give me an action item here. Kerma we have to reach out to them to see if they would cover something like that, so. Yeah, well, that's just it, and that's what we'd like to know.
So that would definitely be a piece of information
Yeah.
that we would need to
Okay.
know, and
Okay.
your experience on that. Okay, so, I do have a question for Alex, if that's okay. Thank you very much, thank you.
No.
So Alex, I know that this information has been sent to Mr. Mulholland,
Yes.
right at our zoning official. So, do you have a sense of when, I assume it's going to be a decision by Mr. Mulholland?
Yeah, it doesn't have to.
As opposed to a whole board decision?
Correct.
Because
The last
it's a
time I
minor-
discussed, he felt that he was comfortable because it's an existing parking lot and it's just an upgrade to the parking lot and it's being referred to planning. He's going to do it through administrative review.
And I spoke with him
Oh,
today as well,
Okay.
and told him, because he was going to get it today. I said, no, told me he had a couple more weeks to do that now. So,
okay, so he'll have that documentation
Yes.
available as well?
Yep.
Just trying to get the pieces,
Yep,
together.
yeah, so I expect to have some record from him with his approval. The primary reason it being referred to him was because of the architectural overlay, but he has the ability to approve that administratively, and he seemed very positive and in support of the project overall. I think it's just a matter of him putting the pen to the paper, but we'll have that between now and the request for action.
My last question, and it could be a joint answer maybe, but, and maybe it's too soon, because there's not enough history here with these devices, but what would be the life expectancy of the hardware of the chargers?
So I'll definitely let the consultants chime in as well, but I have spoken to a couple of other towns. I spoke with Madison, and they have had the EV chargers and are looking to install more. And they had them for several years, and basically the gentleman I spoke to was like in charge of the program, and he said it's been almost entirely self-sufficient for several years. So it's my understanding that they will last a pretty long time, or I should say they have lasted as long as since they've been installed, right? Since they've basically been a product. But do you guys have any more concrete data on?
Yes, I want to
The
say
hardware
Madison
side.
has been 6-7 years now, but generally manufacturers say at least 15. And there's really no standard maintenance. They are fairly self-sufficient.
Okay, just trying to get a sense of that, because the funding is for now, and then, it's not, we don't know what funding might be available at a future point.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I'm set, thanks.
Yes.
For now.
and before, anybody hasn't asked a question, anybody that hasn't gone yet would like to go? Because,
We
go.
talked at the planning meeting a couple of weeks ago. Some of the questions I had, to me, I've had a little bit of exposure with EV charging stations, and I think the Type 3s will be used a lot more than the Type 2s because of their fast charging. And unfortunately, these aren't retrofitable. You have to run phase 3 versus single phase versus 3-phase, so that's unfortunate. I kind of thought about the whole vandalism thing, like the public restrooms, right? I mean, there's a chance that somebody's going to go in there and rip a sink off the wall, but we have insurance for those things. So I think the fee structure that we come up with can cover that rider, can cover the network. There's a network fee, right?
It's a
maintain.
5-year network fee, correct?
So there's other operating fees, but I think our fee structure can include all that. So, so I just wanted to talk about say out loud the conversations that we had last week. So I'm good.
Okay. All right, Ann?
Okay, just two quick questions. Can any electric vehicle use these charging stations, or is it just certain vehicles?
So the auto manufacturers themselves have taken upon it to provide adapters if they feel like their vehicle is not going to fit. It's not been vice versa, and there is a generally more standardized plug as I understand it, but the vehicle that you purchase should come with an adapter that allows you to charge it virtually any station. And this juice bar model in particular that we've kind of narrowed it down to, it's a Connecticut company. It's also one of the acceptable chargers on the rebate. You can't use any charger you want. This is one of the more popular and one that's accepted by Eversource for the rebate money, and that virtually any vehicle would be able to use the charger.
Okay. And then one more question. You said you have 2 level 2 and you're applying for the level 3. Can you change a level 2 to a level 3, or is that different, like
Sure.
technology, or
So
how does
I'll
that work?
give it a little background on the decision-making process, and as far as it talks about cost. So of the 15,000, we're looking at roughly 5,000 per charger, so each parking lot, and 5,000 roughly for a 5-year networking fee, which is our actual ability to run the software and have the support from the software provider if we need help changing our fees or adding employee check-ins or resident or whatever the case may be. That's all included in that networking fee. So that answers the question on the level 2 chargers. If they were vandalized or if they had to be replaced in 15 years, currently that's like $5,000 or $6,000 for one charger, which includes 2 ports. So each one of these sites will get 1 charger, 2 ports, so you can charge 2 vehicles at the same time. I'll get into that layout in a minute. The fast chargers, you're looking at more 30 to 50,000 per charger, right? 30 to 50,000 per charger versus like 5 or 6,000 per charger. So it's a substantial difference in the cost of the charger itself, and that is why we are taking the approach of doing the level 2 with the parking lots, not only because we think it's kind of a long shot to get the level 3 money, but also as a kind of initial investment on the town's end, easier to, invest that initial 10,000 rather than 25, 30,000 plus potentially for the 50,000. It'd probably be at least 50,000 at least. I think 50 or 60. We looked at a proposal for on the town's end to put in the level 3 chargers, even though it comes with a larger rebate. So that was kind of the background behind the cost differential. It is a substantial magnitude of cost with that quicker charging. And the last thing I'll say, to Mr. Weber's point about the other idea would be, while the fast chargers will, charge substantially faster, I wonder if people are not always the people are primarily plugging in at their house. The latest statistics showed at least 60%, if not more, of these vehicles are charged overnight at your home with either a house plug or a level 1 charger, and then only 20 to 30% are being charged on the go, and those numbers are increasing. But it's not like gasoline where you have to go to a gas station and fill your tank from 0 to full. You can kind of top it off, if you will, at one of these charging stations if you have an electric vehicle, but you still might be charging at your house, with the ultimate goal of getting those level 3s. They're just very, very costly.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I think at this point we've heard 2 presentations and we're better informed, but this is budget time and money's on everybody's mind. And I would be interested in knowing, as I said, the number of vehicles in this town that would use it, because we have a number of needs in town which would benefit a much larger group of people.
Right.
So I'm on the fence here.
Sure. I can definitely find that out.
So I'd like to know that. And then the best estimate of what the overall cost is going to finally end up to be.
In terms of installation or?
In terms of the total package, the installation, and then how much money we might recoup from user fees.
Okay.
And I think that part of that would be related to the number of vehicles that we do have in town.
Sure.
And our job is really to service the people of the town.
Sure. Yeah, the installation and rebate portion is outlined in detail in the proposal, and
Yes.
we'll go over those numbers, but I will work between now and then to look at what an expected user fee could be if I can find that data. We'll try to put that together, and then the number of vehicles as well between now and the next meeting. So the last thing I want to cover is just the 2 locations themselves. As you've all seen in the packet and the board in front of you, and as I stated, we would be looking at doing 1 charger in each parking lot, which has 2 ports. Make those both of those parking spaces I propose to be ADA accessible. That does not mean that there's no legal restrictions on anyone to use the space, but the idea would be that you can use this space whether or not you need an accessible parking space or not. We might as well design the first spaces that we're going to install to be ADA accessible, And each one of these parking lots, we have in the proposal to install 3 future-proofed conduits to actually put those in the ground. So you could install in each parking lot up to 3 additional chargers, which means 6 additional ports. So that would, in the future, become a total of 8 at each parking lot if you wanted to go that route. A standard charger that's not ADA accessible can take up a standard parking space, so no alterations to the parking or striping would need to occur. You would just put the charger itself in, run the wire through the conduit and hook it up. But we would be losing 1 parking space on Methodist Street. We would be losing 2 parking spaces on Hope Street. And the only reason we're losing those parking spaces is, again, to make the spaces that we are installing ADA accessible. I believe it's very important to have the first spaces we install be accessible, and then we can talk about doing standard non-accessible spaces, having at least 2 in both of those parking lots moving forward. So that's kind of how everything worked out with the layout and the concept that you see before you. You can see a rendering of what that would look like, which includes the charger being at the ground level instead of up on a curb. It shows the 5-foot striped buffer in between the parking spaces. It shows the 11-foot spaces themselves to make sure there's maneuvering room around either side of the vehicle. And it shows those bollards in front there spaced, at least 5 feet apart, so that you can get in and access that charger at ground level. That's all I'll say about the layout itself, unless you have any other questions about the layout, configuration, or anything like that. Yes?
It's not related to that directly, but we were talking before about the rates. Does the software allow you to charge a different rate for the fast charger as opposed to the slower charger? So if someone wants to pay a premium to charge your car faster, we could do that.
But these would be limited by the actual power draw itself. But if we did, get removed from the wait list, or if we ended up putting in a fast charger in the future, then that's something that we could work out through the software.
Sort of like the difference between regular and high test.
Yeah.
But we're only putting in regular pumps, we're not putting in high test.
Yeah, no, right now, he just said that too.
I heard the question more as like, you could set rate for residents as one rate for non-residents. You could set different times of use as a different rate.
That's it.
Days
But-
of use, sitting time when you're done charging. It's incredibly versatile.
That's good to know. Okay.
So Madison's been pretty open with their usage.
They have basically said that the last time I spoke with them, they said that they've had them and they work, and the gentleman I spoke with couldn't even recall who actually did the install with them. I don't know if that was you guys or somebody else, but they've basically said they've just had them and they've been working.
My question was going to be, are they paying for themselves?
Yeah.
Right, because I heard what you said, that people are unlikely to, if they have a charging station in the garage, it's unlikely that if I'm going to run downtown, I'm going to plug in, right? Because I've got 400 miles on my charge. I don't need to charge every time I go to, so I'm not paying locally. So the people that are going to use it more than likely are going to be out of towners. So that's why I'm now curious about, okay, it's next to the farmer's market there, and there's going to be somebody charging it, and da-da-da-da. So I'm just curious if they actually do pay for themselves, or if it's just one of those things that everybody's got an EV charging station because that's the green thing to do.
Right.
Related question, I guess, is infrastructure-wise with these chargers around the area and in town or close by, what is that looking like? So, for example, I know in Waterford by the Best Buy, there's a set of them. The new gas station going in off of 95, which is in East Lyme, looks like it's putting them in.
Yes, they are.
So, if you could either comment now or at a later next meeting that we discuss this in, if you could, shed some light on what is the existing infrastructure and maybe what you think it may look like going down the pike. So, are more gas stations, when they go through some renovation, are they going to be putting in EV stations? So just a sense. I know it seems like our ambition at this point is limited. Looks like it's kind of an amenity for the town and for those visiting. But just that sense of what exists out there and where we're going with it would be helpful.
So I know right now the state operates a charger in Rocky Neck, and there is one private charger at one of the hotels. I can't remember off the top of my head. But those are the only two chargers that are currently in operation the last time I looked, which is fairly recently in the town. There is a lot of activity on the planning and zoning side across the state to look at requiring chargers for any new development with a certain threshold of parking spaces. I'd leave any comment to that, of course, to our zoning official, Mr. Mulholland, but I know that generally speaking, there's a lot of activity, and I know there's been some legal action on that end in terms of just like you require a certain number of parking spaces, a certain number of ADA spaces, actually requiring a certain number of those to be accessible for electric vehicle chargers for any new or proposed development seems to be the trend. So in short, I would say that definitely you're going to see a lot more vehicle chargers around town. So I think that the charge for me between now and 2 weeks from now is to really look at the rate and fee scheduling and the number of users and come up with some data on that to present, along with the hard numbers that you have in front of you in the proposal. I would encourage you all to just take a look at the proposal in the meantime and discuss that potentially as an action item with me bringing that, answering any questions we couldn't answer here in the meantime or at the next meeting. But
And if you do have, if a question comes up in the meantime, just contact Alex here too. I mean, because he's very good about getting back and so forth like that. Any other questions? Thank you, Alex, and thank you for coming and clarifying some things with us. We'll look forward to hearing from you again in a couple of weeks, Alex.
awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one comment, if I may.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a time when there was just one gas station in East Lyme. And there was a lot of thought given back then, is this, you really going to need this, and what's it for? And there's a shift and a change in technology and in the world. And we're trying to accommodate that. And we don't know how this is going to work out. If we're not trying to make money on it, but we're trying to embrace the future. And in some sense, this may be an experiment, for us. But I think it's a first step in the right direction. And so I hope it's given some support.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you. Moving on to item 2C, what we thought was going to be really easy initially about merging Parks and Rec and Youth Services, just combining the certain parts of both the ordinances. We had Tracy Collins, the town attorney, look at it. I gave this to her a while ago, and she pointed out that there's a lot of other things that need to be taken into consideration as far as some of the items specified in the ordinance have changed, or statute has changed too, to who comprises of these, what has to be done, and so forth. So you have all the documentation from the town attorney in your packet too, and when we met, it was decided that it needs to go back to Youth Services and the Youth Commission and the Youth Coalition as well, to make sure that whatever is done and brought to us for a final ordinance consideration for a revision or adoption needs to make sure that we're still got the right composition, that we're still having all the check marks done. So as Jamie pointed out, we have access to all the grants and so forth like that. So Jerry, would you like to speak to any further to this? I know you've met with, would you like to come up, Jerry? Because Jerry's also been talking with the town attorney too, and trying to make sure this gets done and before they come back to us.
Good evening. Jerry Locken, Parks and Rec Director. Yes, Kevin is right. We did have some conversations with the town's attorney, and they gave us a couple of options. And the plan is for the commissions who meet next week to review those options from the town's attorney to find out which one fits the town the best, or at least in the commissions, both commissions, the Youth Services Commission and the Park and Rec Commission, which one suits best. The town also has a youth coalition, and it gets confusing with the commission and the coalition, but there is an active group in the town that actively works for advocating for youth services, and certainly we want to hear from those folks as well. And conveniently, they meet on Thursday night next week, so we'll have all three of those groups meeting next Thursday night, and hopefully at the end of the night, we'll come back with a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen on which option that each of the groups advocates for.
Okay. And Dan, you'll be present then, I'm sure, Dan? You'll be at that meeting? Yeah, okay. Dan's our ex officio there. Any questions for Jerry? I mean, they have spent a lot of time there. They are going to make sure that we have all the membership, whatever is brought forward, has the right composition, so we have the right people there, the right number of people, the right groups are, as required, are represented, and that we are eligible for the grant. And we do have to include Salem in this because Salem's grant is funneled to East Lyme because of the cooperation with the high school and through the youth services as well. Any questions?
When we discussed this first, I had raised the point of combining, if we combine these, would this limit grants for youth services in particular? And I thought that we had said that, or it was said that as long as we kept the name so that it was Parks and Rec and Youth Services Commission, that would still make them eligible, youth services, for grants that were appropriate for them. So I think that's one thing that needs to be clarified in terms of grants. And I guess that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Just a comment. I'm very happy that the groups are meeting because that seems to be the missing ingredient right now for us to make some kind of an informed decision. What do you feel is best? And knowing what you know about the statutory requirements, et cetera, how is it working for East Lyme now and going forward? So be very interested to hear what you have to say then. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for the members of the commission that are here too to support this as well. So, moving on to new business, item 3A. This is the here again in late 2021, as the cover letter indicates, complaint was filed with the federal government regulating the handicapped accessibility of Town Hall, and they came in not quite a year ago, and did a really thorough inspection of Town Hall and so forth like that, and came forward with their recommendations. The town attorney has met. Mark Zamark has been the point from the town attorney's office, met with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and arrived at the settlement that's enclosed. And I'd really like to thank the U.S. Attorney. I mean, they were very open. There was some very stringent deadlines initially. Within 60 days of my signing or the first selectman signing the agreement, we would have had to have things well in place and a completion which wouldn't have allowed us to even really get a chance to budget for it moving ahead. So this is something we'll have to do, and this is an agreement that our attorney has worked out, and it basically from July 1st we have 33 months to get everything done, which they've given us, obviously, taking into consideration that it all can't be done in 1 year and so forth like that. There's some easy things we can do, with railings and so forth. There's some easy things, but there'll be some more involved things as well. So, any questions?
To get this accomplished and within the time frame, do you think that our current maintenance workers can handle some of this, or are we going to have
no, there'll be a lot we can handle, such as it talks about levels of railings. For instance, all the offices will have to be brought down to basically where the town clerk's office already is, down to 3 feet. So if somebody goes in and they're confined to a wheelchair or have accessibility needs, they'll be right level with the counter. So that'll have to happen in the clerk's office, I'm sorry, the assessor's office, buildings office, downstairs in Public Works, and up here in the assessor's office as well, assessor and tax collector. That we'll be able to pretty much do ourselves. But when you get down to things like, bathrooms, we're going to have to do some major, not major, but involved renovations of the bathrooms to make sure they're properly handicap accessible. That will be beyond what we'll be able to do internally.
Well, I guess my question is our current staff going to be able to do this as in addition to their regular workload?
Yes. That's why, we've got a schedule that allows us the opportunity to get that done. And I know Joe Bergau's already is in the process of coming up with a schedule of how he'd like this to be addressed.
Well, it seems like a lot for people who already have a full-time job to be taking on this extra work.
I agree. But here again, I asked the people who are going to be responsible for doing the work, and they said that a lot of it could be handled internally. So I'll trust their judgment. Any other questions?
I just had a comment. Section 24 said if the timelines contemplated by this agreement should become a hardship for East Lyme, the parties may mutually agree to extend the timeline for a particular item on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
And I was very happy to see that.
Well, the
because-
case-by-case basis, the one item right now is we've talked about at long last what we should have done a long time ago, a lift. An elevator will require major renovation, but a lift would be able to be something we can do. They're working on that right now. So that would be the biggest item.
Well, I'm also concerned because there might be supply chain issues.
Right.
So that was
Yeah.
one of my concerns. And then the other one in section 13 just says, if the United States denies the plans and or drawings, East Lyme shall have 15 days to submit corrected plans and or drawings for approval. And I didn't know, is 15 days enough? That seems like a very short
Yeah,
window
but
of
the
time.
plan is to work. That's a good question, and I should have addressed this. The plan right now is to work with them in getting the plans before we submit them. There's basically an agreement that
So
this is what we're
okay.
looking. So
All right, that makes
yeah.
sense, because otherwise
Yeah.
I'm like, 2 weeks is really
Yeah,
very
15
short.
days is
Yeah.
a tough thing
It's a
too.
blink.
Because I brought that up with Mark. I even talked to him about that, and he said, no, that's where before you submit the plan, you make sure that there's basically a sign off on it. So,
Okay.
Depends on what the change is.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking, 15 days.
Yeah.
This is nothing. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
okay.
and it's interesting too because with the drinking fountains, we've shut them down because people just aren't using them. But we're required to have the drinking fountains, and they have to be both on 2 levels, so they're handicap accessible too. As well as now, a lot of people have that area where they push, fill up the water bottle so I think, and here again, the town stepped up too with the lift/elevator because, it's just inconceivable to have someone who might be working in the building that is wheelchair bound have to go from up here downstairs, especially like in the weather we're going to have the next couple of days. That'd be a very difficult trip. So, and we really appreciate the U.S. Attorney working closely with the town and our town attorney to give us the time necessary to do this. Any other questions?
I have one. On paragraph 26, on page 6, paragraph 26, there is a requirement back to the U.S. Attorney. And who's going to be tasked with monitoring that? And is it going to be our council or?
It'll be Public Works through the First Selectman's office
Okay.
and through town attorney.
I see.
So, yeah, because like I said,
So
town
someone's
attorney.
going to be making sure
Yes.
that we comply with that aspect. of it.
Right.
Okay.
If done, I think, are we ready for resolution?
Ready for it. Resolved that the first selectman is authorized in the name and on behalf of the town to execute and deliver a document entitled Settlement Agreement between the United States of America and the town of East Lyme, Connecticut, EJ number 204-14-245 pertaining to remedies required to bring East Lyme Town Hall and its facilities into conformance with the 2010 Americans with Disabilities Act standards for accessible design, dated at East Lyme, Connecticut on this first day of February 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dan. Further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It carries unanimously. Okay, we've already done the neglected cemetery, so the next item is our budget presentation for the year. For and here again tonight, we won't be going through it. I'll just be covering where we are. So, okay, there, it's up there too. We have just a quick overview here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. As you get the budget right here, you see the first page. You can go to the second page up there for people looking at home. I'll let them get it so that they've got it. Okay, the second slide shows that already, by sitting down with Kevin Gervais and meeting with various department heads, we've reduced expenditures by about $1 million already just from operating. And then also capital projects by about $3.9 million. It's not that we've cut really necessary items out of that either. One of the things in there that we reduced is for next year, there was $2.2 million in there to do the roof at the community center. They're still doing the feasibility study, so the thought was, let's not do that next year because we're not sure what we're going to be moving forward with that too. Harbor management has been pretty much, we've left $1,200 in their budget, reduced it from about $7,000 because, and you worked with, and Chicala worked with them on getting now an upgrade in cost for the moorings. That money will go into a revenue fund, so they'll fund everything except the cost of the harbor master. I couldn't think of the word. Harbor master and clerical will be funded by that as far as what they need to do on the water, using the boat repairs, and so forth. Additional staffing, the only thing, and I think everyone would agree, our finance office has been severely undermanned, and that is the thing that we have to have moving on a, I mean, there are others in the same area, but we're talking about a purchasing agent. This is where it'll be removed from the departments, like the Board of Ed needs something or Public Works needs something. They go to the purchasing agent, he looks for the best price rather than someone in that department looking for it. You have sort of that oversight, and this is where what this person does. Because, and that person makes sure we, everything is in compliance with the purchasing policy. Is it an exigent one where we can waive it? You'll have that there. This person will lawfully serve as a deputy finance director. Tomorrow, our audit from 21 is going to be finally moved on to the state. We're one of 2 towns in the state that haven't done that yet, and we've been dealing with this for over a year. And this will help prevent that from happening because there's so many things that come up on on a very last minute notice financing. For instance, we just instituted a new payroll time and attendance system this week. And here again, because there's so many moving parts of it, we're moving to an automated system, basically, pen and pad. And it's resulted in they'll get paid, but they'll get paid a day late this week. So these are things that if you have the people in place, especially with finances, it won't happen. Police officers, we're still roughly, we were 5th lowest in the state in 2020. In 2021, we were 10th lowest in the state for officers per 1,000. The chief had asked for 3. I've cut that to 2 as of right now. And firefighters, they've asked for 2. I've cut that to 1 right now because we've seen the increase in calls, and since we've had the some of the larger apartment complexes that have gone in, and the calls for a HEPA and so forth like that. So that's one of the reasons for that. So that's where that is right now. Some revenues we're updating to bring in some money. We're updating building department code and permit fees. We are lagging behind all the communities around us as far as what we charge for department code and permit fees. with the changes down there in the last year, we have some excellent people who are addressing this. This will probably bring in a significant amount of revenue. Charging for fire marshal services, we're the only town in the whole region that doesn't do this for inspections and for planning and review fees. I talked to the fire marshal, and with the building inspector, they estimate at a minimum $75,000 to $100,000 in additional revenue by instituting these. I'll be bringing, the fire marshal has his extremely well documented what other towns are doing and what we need to do. And here again, you'll be able to provide this, and then it's only the people that'll be utilizing the services that'll, basically be charged for it. And it'll allow some revenue to do some other things and possibly reduce some costs as time goes on. The budget challenges. Health insurance. Right now it's at 10%, and it's in the letter here. It's a 10% increase, or actually with everything added in that too, it's a little bit more. It's closer to a 12%. It's up about $251,050. We are hoping, and we'll see some better type of estimate once we're talking to the providers here in the next week or so. So we're hoping that'll help us out a little bit. Inflationary pressures. As we all know, our costs have gone up significantly. One area it's not affecting us is Joe Bergaw locked in fuel at exactly the right time, so we're looking very good for fuel. I mean, not for fuel, but for electricity. We still have another year to go on that, so our electric rates are in good shape. Better than we had anticipated to in fuel, because Joe watches that on a daily basis. And, he said, he'll tell me, be available today because I'm going to have to reach out to you really quick to get okay to lock in. So, but, inflationary pressures, as I talk about, I think in here too, with FICA and Medicare and so forth like that. So those are putting a little bit of a challenge on us. Salt, for example, is up, I think, 75%, the cost for salt. Fortunately, and I won't say anything more about the fact that we haven't and we'll leave it there. But we don't want to jinx it. But that's an expense you have to budget for because you don't know what it's going to be. Debt service, general obligation bond. We're seeing basically $1.1 million, in increased, as I have in my cover letter. Actually, a $1,575,438 increase in our debt service for fiscal year 23-24. Our overall debt service is not bad. Kevin, what is it at?
We are at 7.4% of debt service annually to expenses as a percentage. 7.4%. Our DERG's average is 8.14.
So we are we're still under that, which is good when it comes to bonding and so forth, and going out to bond and for credit rating, and that. But it means that before anything happens this year, we have to fund the $1,575,438 for debt service. And that's because for the last couple of years, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, we've been paying just the interest. But this year, because of the way they were done several years ago, now is the year that it hits for the principal as well as the interest payment. So that's why that's the 1.1. The rest is just other things coming out. This would be, and Kevin will explain to this once we get to that portion of the budget review, about, the school bonds are starting to come on. There's some other things. The last one is just basically, kind of highlights everything. Town operations for fiscal year 23 and then fiscal year 24. Right now, we're up 6.49%. The Board of Ed is up 6.97 from 54 to 57.8. And total expenditure, so at 8.24 year-over-year increase. And then it shows the debt service and capital and so forth like that. Depending upon how things, we'll have to decide how much we have available in unused funds, because this year, for instance, we haven't, as we said, we have to identify funds to finance that 94,000 or 9 if we needed. And right now, we haven't touched our contingency, not the salary one, but the other one. There's 222,000. the less we have to touch that, is the more money we can return at the end of the year. So we're trying to find alternate ways to fund that too. And we also had the salary contingency last year. That's been a little better than we thought too. We didn't have to expend as much out of what Ann had set aside there. So we do have some resources there. So we're looking at every possible way. Take over the next couple weeks or till our next meeting. I think on the 13th we have a special meeting to come up with some questions. And there was more areas I could have cut and so forth like that. But I think I took the ones that I thought were fairly obvious. But I think going beyond that, we have to have that discussion here because I'm very not uncomfortable moving 6.49. I think we need to get that down. Until that 1.1 million jumped up there, we were down to under 4%. We were at 3.5, but that one item has jumped us up that 3% basically. So it's going to be a challenge, but and here again, we're hoping for better news as time goes on about a whole lot of things. This is a moving figure and so forth like that. So, any immediate questions on this? Or if not, because I know you didn't have time. But yes, Ann.
Just a really quick one. You said under additional staffing, you had a purchasing agent and deputy finance director. Is the purchasing agent just for the town, or is it also for the Board of Ed? Would it be for everything?
It would be, the plan is Kevin's idea, is for everyone. So, when something comes through, here again, an emergency, a valid emergency, that can easily, but it still comes through that individual who has the ability to take a look at it and has the resources to know where to reach out to find, contractors and so forth like that, and the best price for the town. Because, I think our staff does a really good job. We had a water main break last week, and fortunately, we didn't have to use anybody outside. But we've had very good luck with the people we've brought in that. But as Kevin points out, it's time to take a good overall look at what can we do better. And I think one of the things, that's what I think we've been doing for the last several months, is how do we do things better, especially in the finance world, because that drives so much of what we do on a day-to-day basis here.
And the Board of Ed, they're aware of this, the purchasing agent?
We've talked to Mariana about it and Jeff about it, yes.
And they're on board?
We had discussions about it because, and I don't want to say they're on board because I don't know if they've taken it to their board yet.
Okay.
But we've had discussions with them, so I don't want to, say that they maybe haven't even been brought to them yet.
Okay.
But we want to look at a way of doing this and doing something that's centralizing purchases.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
The expectation that this person would be paid part by the town and part by the Board of Ed?
So,
Kevin, you might want to or grab a microphone. Okay, go up there. I'll leave this to Kevin.
we're in a step challenge in my family.
Okay,
I'm in last place.
yeah.
So, what was the question? I forgot.
Basically,
Between here and there, what we were talking about.
who's going to pay for it? Is it going to be all town or all?
So, the purchasing agent, my plan was, part of this job is the purchasing agent. The real title is Deputy Finance Director / Purchasing Agent. That gives that person the responsibility of purchasing as well as being in the second of command. So the budget is set up so 100% of it is paid from the town. The Board of Ed, I was kind of thinking of more of the larger things. So they're economies of scale. So we combine oil, the fuels, electricity. We would do, maybe the bus, contract, things like that. But the day-to-day office supplies and things like that, a lot of departments do that internally. So it would be the higher level things, and then on the town side, everything is revolving purchasing. So there would be other aspects of just the purchasing. Purchasing would be 50% of the job. The other half of it would be the day-to-day operations, reconciling, because that person would do the bank reconciliations of, balance sheet accounts, helping to get the quarterly financials done and preparing for the audit. So,
Kevin, would the purchasing agent help with moving through like RFPs and RFQs and all that? Because that seemed to me, it just seems to be cumbersome for every department, in town to be handling those.
So they'd still have to work with the departments, like if Public Works has something specific, like they're I don't even know, putting a new road down or something, they're experts in their field, but the purchasing agent has, the consortiums and the resources in the purchasing, field to kind of say, okay, what's best practice, and then, it's just another set of eyes outside of that particular department, just to say, hey, we got the best full faith effort to get the lowest possible bid, and it's just another set of eyes, and I think it's time to have a purchasing agent. $80 million, we really should have a professional overseeing the procurement of a lot of the.
Yeah, and some of the questions, Kevin and I have started working on the questions you're bringing up now. He and I are in the process of coming up with the presentation for later on.
Yeah, we haven't-
but they're really good questions. But
There's no job description yet.
Right.
no, that's what we're
And can I just make 2 comments I wrote down when you were giving your presection?
I
30
hope
seconds
so.
each.
Yeah, you can take longer if you'd like.
So, with regard to the debt service, that's that's driving the budget really. It's 32.5%, I believe, increase. Next year, that's not going to change. So we currently have $6 million in bond anticipation notes. All right, the budget Kevin and I just went through over the last couple of weeks. We have the bonded capital down to, off the top of my head, the work paper's in the very back of those books, the capital projects. I think it's $3 million. So if that stays the same, this August we're going to be bonding for another $9 million. So say it's a 20-year note, $9 million. We'll just round up to 10 so I can do mental math. That's $500,000 in principal. How much in interest? So $200,000. So that's another $700,000 of debt service. Rough numbers for next year on top of what we're dealing with now.
And we're talking about ways to bring that down.
Yeah, and we have bonds rolling off, but my bond sheet, the newest bond we have is 2014. So we have, if that was a 10-year bond, it didn't look exactly. It rolls off next year, but the principal payment on that is less than $100,000 right now. The interest is like $20,000. So it's not the same as the bond we're going to take on. So just to go forward for next year as well, that the debt service is going to keep going up as we bond.
When I get an email from Kevin at 1:08 in the morning, I realized it was probably not one I really wanted to read at that moment. So, but this is something we've been working on very hard because these are the things, the bonding and so forth like that. Because he's done a really good job of going through this painstakingly. We've amended this several times because we keep finding, make sure this has been painstakingly gone through a lot because we realize the challenge that's ahead. So.
There's one more comment I want to make.
Please.
The use of the fund balance, the second page of the revenues, that's just a placeholder right now. I think it's either 1.8 or $2 million. The second page of the revenue sheet. Other financing sources at the very bottom. I double check. It's in all those workbooks. But so this current year we have a $1.3 million use of fund balance in the budget. If we bring in more revenue than we budgeted for, I won't do that transfer. So that, it's a wash. But there will be still fund balance there at the end of the year if we're bringing in more revenue, which we are on track to do. So that $2 million, it's not like we're rating the fund balance this year and then rating it again next year. The fund balance is going to be replenished by the increase in revenue this year.
And to, one good thing too is I was going to do this under Selectmen's report from Board of Ed, but they're right now tracking it they're down to about 300,000 for their deficit, so that's heading in the right direction. So the less we have to touch that, if at all, and they are working hard. I will give them. I talked to Jeff a couple times a week, and he's trying very hard. That will obviously help us out because that's money we don't have to take out of that. So.
And my last comment. When we get into the deliberations and going through the budgets, I'll have a projection finished of the fiscal year 23 budget, so we can see where we're gonna, right now everything holding equal, where we're gonna end up at the end of the year to see what fund balance looks like. So, and like I said, my door's always open. So if you guys have any questions, you have my email and.
Actually, your door is closed most of the time. I have to knock on it.
That's because there's usually someone sitting in there.
Yes, I know.
Okay, you currently have 2 secretarial aides, I don't know their titles, working in the office to assist.
So right now we have 3 fiscal clerks. We have an accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll. Payroll has to be out we're doing weekly payroll. and it's actually weekly payroll that is due by Wednesday because we pay our employees on Thursday instead of Friday. So, so we have three staff, and they all have their duties, but the accounts payable clerk, she's doing hundreds of invoices a week, so there's not, I mean, you know, she was here till about 6:15 helping me make those budget books. So they, you know, when they have availability, they help me do tasks, but a lot of the work that is bottlenecking is higher level accounting work that, you know, has to get reviewed, and, you know, there needs to be an accountant, you know, performing the work, reconciliations of accounts, things like that, that are more technical than some of the clerk positions I think could handle.
So if we went with the full-time position, you would still need these 3 people?
At the moment, yes. So right now, I think the office suffers from just not having enough time to do basic tasks such as monthly reconciliations. And you don't take it from me. The August Board of Finance meeting at 28 minutes and 35 seconds, Ron Nozick said we could use temps in the finance office. So I remembered that. That was my first meeting. And I sat there saying, oh, I'm going to write that time down right there. And it was in the management comments in the audit. He recommended additional staffing in the finance office. Because everything we do is, I call it just-in-time reporting. Like those budget workbooks were due at 7 o'clock today, and about 6:15, in between eating a grinder and working with my accounts payable clerk, we got those books together, and the town clerk as well. So we really borrow resources from other departments and just try to get things out on time, but it's not an ideal situation.
The challenges and the responsibilities and requirements in that finance office have just made this such a necessary requirement.
In my humble opinion, those other 3 positions are positions that turn the crank and do the things that they have to do. A good purchasing agent will pay for themselves over and over.
A few bids.
If they're good at what they do, then they'll be able to pay for their own salary.
I know we'll talk more about the purchasing agent request when when that time comes in budget review, but just to mention that when we were doing purchasing policy and getting it together, and the big challenge in writing that policy was that we didn't have a purchasing agent, and so all the levels of authority were skewed in a different direction because of that. So, and that's, I mean, the sample policies we were looking at, many of them, most of them had purchasing agents.
And
frees up the people to do what they're
Right.
better at.
And right now, I'm the town's purchasing agent.
Yes.
So in Brookfield, we had a split purchasing agent between the town and the schools, but that person was going to conferences and was talking to their groups. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the bandwidth to go to a purchasing agent of Connecticut Consortium conference. That also doesn't sound that interesting, but that's something I think the town needs. As the town's grown throughout the years, there's a need here to procure for lower pricing, and just to make sure we actually are buying the lowest priced good. We're using the state contracts and just doing some best practices. So I think it'll be a big. I think there'll be a big improvement.
Okay. And before we move off of budget, we've been talking a lot about it. The date for the Board of, we're looking at for the Board of Education to present to us will be on March 13th. Now, we have to adopt we have to send our budget to the Board of Finance, adopt it on the 1st of March, which will be ours and the Board of Ed's approved budget. The Board of Ed is not approving their budget until February 27th. So we couldn't possibly have a chance to get it, review it, and have any questions before we would adopt the budget. And here again, we wouldn't be able to change the number anyway as far as the bottom line. So I've talked to Jeff. Last year, us submitting the questions to the Board of Finance that we came up after going through it, that was difficult. We would be able to have the Board of Ed present to us on the 13th. That would give us almost a couple weeks to review the budget they give us on the we'd get it on the 1st, and then provide our questions our comments, and not questions, our comments on the budget to the Board of Finance prior to the Board of Ed presenting to them. So they haven't scheduled a date, but it'll be after that. So
What's the date for there again?
March 13th for the Board of, I talked to Jeff today. Sandy's been also talking with, been in contact with Jackie, the superintendent's administrative assistants, and the 13th is when it is, that night. I know there might be one or a couple, but I think it's important that we get a good presentation by them. And with a couple of weeks, we'll be able to ask questions and then provide our comments to the Board of Finance. And also, we have the 27th as a meeting to be determined as far as what it is. We did have services to the community down for that night. That's the only one so far. But Ann had pointed out that that's the night that the Board of Ed has their public hearing and then their discussion and adoption of the budget. So it'd probably be a good idea if we find another date for that. So when we come back on the 13th, I'll propose a couple other meeting opportunities for us to get together to review our budget, if that's okay.
Can I say one other thing about the budget?
Yes, sir.
Capital typically is something that makes you money over a period of time. You're decreasing the capital budget by 0.7% of the total budget. Other areas are increasing by 5%.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is you did. I'm just.
Well, we took out $2.25 million. That was the biggest amount right there. That was in the budget for next year for a roof at the community center.
You went from 678 down to 610. So you took out 68,000.
That's cash capital.
That's cash capital. I thought you were talking about the capital plan itself.
Yeah, I'm just looking at capital other, and it's decreased to $68,000.
Okay. Here again, if it's something we can talk, I'm not sure. All right.
It's here.
Oh, you're on page 4. Okay.
I only have
Yeah, go ahead and talk about that for a second.
It's 2 pages per page.
two. Gotcha.
So, if you go to the back of your books, CIP, CIP or capital projects,
724.
CIP.
I don't have anything in mind for 724 yet.
there's a copy.
Oh, there it is. It might be.
Might be right behind it.
It might be. Yes, it's under CIP.
Capital request.
Yeah, CIP.
This,
This is the 10.
That's a 10-year, and there should
Okay.
be, it should look like this, with 2 lines down it.
Let's see. Okay. No. No.
Before you guys leave here in executive session, I'll print copies for you.
Okay, so what is that?
So
this is this
that's
one?
the 10-year plan.
Right.
So if you look at 2024, the 2024 year, that matches what we have here. So if you want to follow along that way,
Oh, I
they
see.
reconcile.
Okay.
So what I did was, I'll show you here, 20-year bond, 10-year bond, 5-year financing paid in cash. So I split up how we're paying them. So this cash on page 2 is $700,000. There's a spreadsheet. This $100,000 here is paid for by bond premium. So subtract the $100,000 from the 710, and you get the 610, 840. So it was really just how we allocated it out. So it's going down because it's decreasing on the cash needs, but the overall bond and projects is $4.9 million. So it's just how we were paying for it. They were just larger ticket items.
Okay, I wasn't trying to get into the specifics. Also, I was just going to say is that sometimes you can be penny wise and dollar foolish if you.
No, okay, we had talked about that. We also want to make sure that, if we, we're looking, I understand what you're
I
saying.
didn't mean to belabor the issue.
No, that's okay.
Typically, capital is something that's good to spend.
Yeah.
I think is basically what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, but like I said, I think one of the big items was, but anyway.
Because it's such a small percentage.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm done.
No, that's fine.
Who am I kidding?
Okay. I think that completes our, I think if there's anything I wanted to mention about the, if I could think, it's been a long day for all of us here, but
ex officio report.
Yeah, if,
Report.
yeah, if any, no, I know, ex officio. I'm just saying an action item, so. Yeah, if there's, is there any comments? Okay, Roseanne, anything for ex officio?
I don't have anything for ex officio, but I do have some comments.
Okay,
I can wait till other people do their ex officios if you'd like.
okay. Dan?
Let's see, just the East Lyme Waterford Shellfish Commission. I just point out that I remember the bridge the other day, and it seems that there's a lot of people out getting clams, and so
Yeah, they've been
a lot
issuing lots of
activity.
permits. They really
Yeah.
have.
So that looks like good news. So that's about it.
Okay. And?
Just for water and sewer, but you will cover that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna cover the
Yeah.
capacity for this. Yeah.
I have nothing.
Okay.
Planning had a special meeting on the 25th. Two big two main topics, I think. There's a Hathaway Farm subdivision that was rejected because the paperwork was very inconsistent, and our planner made a list of some 30 points that were needed to be addressed, and we talked about the SEV stations. So that was the two issues.
Okay. All right. Roseanne, do you want to make your comments now?
So, we heard some well-deserved remarks made about Ms. Hogan during her tenure as first select woman, and I was fortunate to serve as her deputy, and we had a lot of experiences together, problem solving. But I'd also like to speak about Dennis Murphy, because he was one of our more unique first selectmen. He recently passed away. He was elected to 4 terms. First of all, serving from 1971 to 1977, and then I guess he missed us a lot because he came back in 1985 to serve until 1989. I don't know of any first selectman that had that amount of interruption in his terms. So his 24-year career in the U.S. Navy, serving with an illustrious career, prepared him with leadership experience, which in turn benefited East Lyme. However, I do think he did find that as first selectman, it wasn't quite the same as giving orders to his crew. During his term, serving with him on the Board of Selectmen were Kent Sestair, Paul McDonough, Eugene Cushman, Jeff McNamara, and myself, with Bob Marion as town council. It was quite the group. We all managed to keep the ship afloat and wish him well as he sails to his next adventure. And believe me, anyone who served with him doesn't have a story that they could tell. That's it.
Thank you, Roseanne. And again, starting off again, I met Dennis Murphy once when I was hired as a police officer in town. That was it. There were 6 of us. We went in. He said, "Welcome, thank you," and then we were escorted out of the office. So I can tell. Does that fit what you were talking about, Roseanne, a little bit?
Yes.
Very cordial, but moved us on. Yeah, to the point too. So again, too, and again, we found out yesterday that Beth Hogan passed away over the past weekend, and our condolences to her family, who are still obviously in town, to Conrad and Emily, and there'll be a calling hours on February 10th, Friday, from noon to 2 at Nealon Brothers Funeral Home. And I remembered, about a month after I had taken office, Beth came in and asked me how it was going, and I told her, and she said, "People come in and yelling all the time?" "Yes." And she said, "Oh, that?" And then they're going to come in, they're going to complain to you their garbage wasn't picked up, and because you're the first selectman, you're the first stop. And and she said they're going to also come in and whatever the traffic backed up at the Four Corners on a holiday weekend is your fault. And then she said, "And then it'll be the bad days." So, and I just laughed. And I don't think I ever saw Beth where she did not have a smile on her face. And even if you disagreed with her vehemently during a discussion in a meeting, once the meeting was over, it was very cordial, and that was behind. So, as I said at the beginning tonight, we're a better town because of Beth and people like her, who always put the interests of the community above any partisan political views and so forth like that. So we thank her family for allowing or allowing them to share her with us for all these years, and it's going to be a loss for the community. So anybody else want to offer a comment? Or
Yeah.
Ann,
well,
please.
So, I think that Beth, besides being a great select person, a good person, was also all about outreach. Personally, for me, she showed up at my front door and was like, "Do you want to get involved in politics?" And I was like, "Yeah, how do I go about doing it?" And that was like 7, 8 years ago now. And many people I've spoken to, since Saturday have said, "Oh, it's because of Beth that I'm involved in politics." And I think that's a real credit to her. And I think we're all really going to miss her. And that she did a lot for the town, for everybody.
Very much so.
I would just echo some of those comments. I got to know Beth when, around 2005, when she was select woman, and maybe even before then. And she was always very gracious and cordial to me, and to the extent that I worked with her on some of the issues confronting the town at that time, I got to know her. I had that opportunity, and I've had great respect for her ever since, and miss her deeply. And she was a great influence on me as well. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here tonight if she hadn't influenced me and encouraged me.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
So I would kind of a little different slant on that is Beth had served on a number of different boards with me, and she didn't get me into politics, but she's probably a good part of the reason why I stayed in, because she was good to work with, and you couldn't tell what party she was sometimes. She's just part of the crew and working on solving problems. So she'd be missed.
And as I moved her photo, it was because it goes chronologically. I moved Brett to the front and center, so she's staring right at us tonight with her ever, always present smile too. So anyway, so
Very nice.
okay. All right, thank you. I'll make mine because we've been here for a long time. Really quick, we had a Route 161 corridor update and so forth like that. Though the plan is right now is, they're going to extend the sidewalk basically from Society Road all the way down. The thing is, when they get around the Gordon Pond there, or the lake, the pond, they're going to look at seeing if they can put a little bit of a boardwalk out, so you're actually out walking a little bit by the water. They don't know if they can, but they will. It cannot right now, even if they widen it a little bit to accommodate a sidewalk, it will not be able to accommodate a bike path. So they're not looking at being able to do that. They are looking at extending the sidewalk from Oak Hill, if you're on the what would be the eastbound side, widening the sidewalks there. They're very narrow now to 5 feet and all the way down. And one of the things they looking at was a roundabout for East Pat and 161 and Chapman Farms, but I'm thinking, well, they have another option, which we all said. Alex, you were there too. You were on the meeting as well too. And up by the high school, because that's where it starts, they're looking at putting in a turning lane there, so at that busy time of the morning, there'll be a dedicated turning lane so people don't have to sneak around to the side, widening it up a little bit, putting sidewalks on both sides, widening those out, making that far more accessible. They said their research shows that there is no need for a traffic light at the entrance to the high school on 161 because of the short period of time in which it's there. So it was really very informative, and they'll be they're hoping for sometime in the late spring another one of those presentations and public meetings so people can come in and see what the plans are. The Dominion building, there was a Yale Charette Main Street meeting yesterday. They showed a couple just, still drawings of what could go in where the Dominion building is now. They said if it's something the town maintains control over, we can control, like having a building that we could lease out for rental space. And they also talk about putting like an overlook with a above ground patio overlooking up above the train, the fences and so forth, to overlook it. And it would be about 3,500 square feet where you could have like a gala or something like that. They said if it goes to commercial development, even if you require them to have some type of public access, these buildings are built in a manner which the public access looks like it belongs to the you know, it looks like it's not public access, so people don't utilize as much. But regarding the cinemas, there's been one person coming forward, an idea to make it dinner theater performances, and one still for movies and so forth like that, but nothing forming that. Regarding the Dominion building too as well, with their help, we're planning on in late March, early April, possibly having a presentation to the community to show what are the options for the Dominion building and what's it going to cost for us to clean it up, you know, basically from start to finish, with a couple of renditions and conceptual ideas of what it would look like if we maintained it and put something in there. So we'll look forward to that. And again, Dominion's been extremely, you know, okay, whatever you need for a timeline, they're not too concerned with us. Board of Ed I report on. Kathy Wilson has given us her official retirement letter, saying that she'll be done at the end of March. So that'll be a big loss. She's been here for, Roseanne,
20 years.
20 years? I thought it was a little longer than that. Inside in your budget book is the grand list figures. Those are a little bit good, so we did have some good news this week, financially wise. So, and this weekend, we're expecting coming in late tomorrow and Friday and Saturday, some extremely cold weather. They've been posting things on the public safety page and so forth like that to make sure people know what to do if they need help, and they have phone numbers to reach out to. And lastly, with water and sewer, Water and Sewer had a presentation where they want to build in the old Tracus property behind the gas station and so forth, build a basically called it's a retirement community where there'll be condos in the back. As you come forward, there'll be an assisted living facility, and to the also there will be a emerging care facility for doctor's offices and so forth like that. Bob Fanner has done the architectural work on that, and it's been brought by a group of developers, and what they are coming to Water and Sewer for is asking for capacity. We are getting close to capacity, but it looks like right now we do have it, so they'll be coming back on March 2nd for the date's right, March 2nd for a public hearing, and that'll be advertised for people to come and comment and so forth like that. And Water and Sewer's only involvement in this will be, do we have the capacity, not anything else like that. But, you know, it was a very impressive display of what they intended to put back there. Very nice, two-bedroom condos. Little Dodge Pond, which doesn't exist anymore, they're going to reclaim that and put, you know, basically do some, actually add some wetlands into it as they go along. So that will obviously have to go through planning and zoning and so forth like that as they move ahead, but that was at Water and Sewer. Any questions? Okay. If none, just a couple brief things regarding Hathaway Farms and so forth. So we'll, first of all, is there any member of the public that would like to speak? No? Okay. Seeing none, so no Selectmen's response, just a motion to enter into executive session.
Move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters, East Lyme Land Trust, Oswegatchie Hills, and Hathaway Farms property. The board is entering into executive session at 8:52 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're back. Okay, we are back from, and Ann?
Yes, the board has returned from executive session at 9:16 p.m. and no formal votes were taken.
Okay.
And let's move to adjourn the regular meeting of February 1st, 2023 at 9:17.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, all right.